Hey guys, thank you for joining me. Welcome to another video. I'm going to talk about something today that is very seldom discussed, and that is the way that bears approach a bait. And I'm talking about the big mature bears, the smart ones, you know, the adult males especially, that we all would like to have on our wall and in our freezer. You hear people talk about a bear circling a bait before it comes in and a lot of different topics of discussion, but I want you to think about this in a way that's probably different than what you've been taught, or different than what's often discussed when people talk about the way that bears approach a bait. And by the end of this video, I think I'm going to give you some really interesting nuggets to think about, probably that you haven't thought about before. I spent a lot of time sitting in a stand watching bears and thinking about bears and trying to analyze their behavior, looking over trail camera pictures of bears coming to baits and so forth, and I have developed some pretty strong opinions about this, and I'm just going to share them with you. And obviously you're not going to be forced to agree with me, but if you'll get to the end of this video with an open mind, I think I'll give you some really interesting things to think about. So here we go. First of all, let's talk about the issue of bears circling a bait. Now, I have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bears coming to baits in person, and I can't say that I've ever actually saw a bear or knew of a bear that actually completely circled the bait. I can think of a few instances where bears maybe did as much as a half to 3/4 of a circle, but even that is uncommon. And I don't think that bears will generally circle a bait before they come in. I also want you to think about the fact that when you see a trail or two or three that are actually coming to the bait, and you're in pretty thick cover, so what you're seeing is where the bears make their final commitment to the bait. It's where they just walk in. If you're in a stand, it's where they just step out and there's a bear, and he came from right there. That's not necessarily the direction that the bear approached the bait from. So now you're thinking, okay, this is a conflict here. He's saying they don't circle it, but they are entering from a different direction than they actually approach the baits. So here's where I really started to realize what was going on with some of these bigger mature bears that just, they don't just walk into a bait like a yearling. It'll just kind of roll in sometimes, or a 2-year-old bear or something like that. They'll just kind of walk in. The bigger mature bears just won't do that. So rather than calling it a bear circling the bait, let's look at it this way. He's going to use his nose, he's going to use his ears, and he's going to use his eyes. So let's deal with the nose first. I believe that there are two things that the bear is trying to do when he comes to a bait site, and rather than just do a circle, he's a little more strategic than that. And the two things are this. Number one, he is likely going to try to smell your entry trail. He knows where you've been coming to bait. He knows where you're coming in, and he's going to probably go to that spot and smell your ground scent so he can determine how long it's been since you were there. And if you were there an hour ago or 5 hours ago or the day before, he knows. He absolutely can figure that out by how strong your ground scent is. Well, this is important to him because he's looking for consistency, and consistency makes him feel safe. He's going to feel more secure if you're on a pattern and he has you patterned. It kind of makes him feel like he's in control, I guess you could say. Okay, so the second thing that he is probably going to try to smell is he's going to go to a position where he can get downwind of the bait itself. And there's several reasons why he wants to do this. First of all, he wants to just smell it because it smells good, and it's like, yeah, it's still there, and it smells fresh. And is it something I want to eat? Yeah, you know, that smells pretty good. He also wants to check, you know, is there anything different? This is the reason why you shouldn't change up lures or do something different on the day that you actually get in the stand. I've talked about this in other videos, but a lot of people they'll have a pattern of baiting, and then when they go out to hunt, they'll do something different. Like they'll do a honey burner, they'll spray something, a different scent, or like, we're going to pull out all the stops right here because we're hunting today, so we want to do everything we can. And that's very counterproductive, because when that bear gets downwind of the bait, he's actually gonna go, wow, that's not what I'm used to. That makes me a little uncomfortable. Maybe I'll just wait till after dark. He's also going to try to determine what else is at the bait. Is there a potential that the person that's been bringing the bait, he's associating your smell with the bait. He knows the two go together. Maybe hasn't really analyzed or figured out, if they even can, that you're bringing the bait, but he knows that the two go together. So he wants to smell that there's a bait there, but there's not a person that he smelled the ground scent at the bait. He also wants to know, are there other bears at the bait? Is he going to have to interact with another bear? Is he going to spook a bear off? Is he the mature bear, or is there a bear that's going to beat him up or whatever? A lot of times I've heard a stick crack, and I realize that that's a bear that's trying to get a reaction from something that might be at the bait. So he'll step on a stick and break a branch and see if anything makes a noise or stands up and looks, or anything at the bait. Maybe there's a smaller bear at the bait or whatever. So he will do that. I don't think it's common for bears to get downwind of the bait site and try to circle to the point where they can smell if somebody's in the stand. I don't think it's generally something that bears are trying to figure out, as if somebody's in the stand or not. I think they're just trying to figure out the ground scent and the bait itself. So enough on that point. So you can use that to your advantage when you're setting up your stands, or when you're choosing which bait sites to hunt based on wind direction. And I got to be honest with you, I pay less and less attention to wind direction when I'm choosing a bait site to hunt than I used to. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is, I'm going back to, you really just don't know where the bear is before he finally commits to the bait. You don't know which direction he is, so you might be picking a wind direction based on which way the trails are coming, but the trails might not be coming from the same direction that he came from. That's just where he makes the final commitment. I've heard some people that are pretty sharp about this call it a J hook, where they kind of come around and then they hook in. I know of an example of a bear that I saw it walk across an opening about 40 yards behind the bait, and then I saw it over here, and then I saw it behind me, and then it came in right below my stand and walked to the bait, and it was more like a G shape, I guess you would say. When you're trying to pick a stand based on wind direction, you have to have a really good idea where the bear is coming from before he does the final approach. And that's sometimes doable, because you might have a swamp nearby where they're laying up during the day or whatever, or you might have a pretty good idea based on tracks where they're coming across that 2-track gravel road out there, because I see their tracks in the mud right before they came in. I mean, there's ways you can figure that out, but it's difficult. The second thing is basically, you can minimize your scent as much as possible and try to reduce your scent as a part of the bait package. But the bear, if he really wants to try to figure out if you're in the stand, he can. Okay, so that pretty much covers their nose when they approach a bait site. Let's talk about sound and hearing and so forth, and what I call staging areas. And I've done a video in the past on when I found a staging area where the bears were coming to my bait and they were stopping about 75 yards or so away, and they were actually just sitting there. And there was piles of scat, there was places you could see where they had laid down. They're actually just staging area, and they're listening. They couldn't see the bait from there. And unless the wind direction was right, which it usually wasn't, they couldn't smell the bait, but they're just listening. So they'll often do that, where they come to a spot, and maybe they come and it's just too light. There's too much daylight for them to feel very comfortable yet, and they might sit there for a half hour before they actually make that final approach to the bait. And it's just kind of a place where they're just waiting for the time to be right until, they've raised that comfort and security level. Okay, another issue that I've seen quite often, and actually videotaped it a couple times in person, where bears will find a place where they can view the bait. And if you're in a place where there's hills They might come to a spot where they can just sit down and look at the bait from a safe distance away. And I've got this on, in fact, this little short video clip that I'm about to show you right now, you've probably seen before. It's where I actually caught a bear that was walking through the brush, and he actually just poked his head out of a hole where he had found that he could just look down on the bait. And I saw him do that multiple times. Okay, I want to tell you something here that will help you understand the dynamics of how bears see the bait that might be different than what you're used to. Now, when I was younger and first started out putting baits 20-some years ago, I kind of saw it as like I was doing these bears a big favor. I mean, like I'm putting all these donuts out there. Why would you go eat acorns when, look at what I'm giving you? But bears see it completely differently. It's like they don't see it like you're doing them a favor, especially these mature bears. They just really know that this just isn't right. It just doesn't feel natural to them. And they're just going to have a really high level of caution because they just have this feeling like, it's almost like this just seems too good to be true, and if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And that's sort of the way they're viewing this bait, and you have to always kind of keep that in mind, that they're just going, you know, this just isn't right, it just isn't natural. So if I'm going to do this, I just got to be hyper cautious. And that's the way the big bears are, and that's why so many of them, the big mature males, just come in the dark, because we talk about how they need to feel safety and security. Well, darkness is like the ultimate security blanket for them. And some of these big bears, they just get basically impossible to kill by legal means because they just won't come in during the daylight. But the ones that will, if they're comfortable and if they are in an environment where they feel secure and they come and they get something good to eat and they aren't disturbed and they let their guard down a little bit, and those bears will come back eventually in the daylight if you don't push them too hard. It's why you really don't necessarily want to hunt every day. You want to be strategic about the times that you hunt. Just keep watching those cameras and analyzing them, and then strike when the conditions are right, on the right time, and you got a chance to kill that big mature bear that we're all after. So thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed this. I really love it when you leave some comments and have some good, healthy discussion about some of these topics in the comment section below. Thank you for being a part of this channel and part of this video, and we'll see you on the next video.